Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Mike Beer, taking a look at Kentucky Derby contender Mendelssohn, and it's hard, almost impossible to be wishy-washy, I think, about Mendelssohn. I think you have to take a strong stance. Either you think he's uber talented and a very, very nice horse, or you're going to look at his last race, the UAE Derby, and we're going to see him just run away and hide from this field, and you're going to say he took the lead on a day where inside speed was golden and he beat some terrible horses and he's all dressed up. What is your take?
Yeah, I mean, listen, those things don't have to be mutually exclusive. He can still be a good horse and all be all dressed up with nowhere to go. I think he's both of those things. I do think he's pretty good. But taking this race at face value and thinking that that's what he is, to me, that's a little bit tougher to swallow. This was obviously, it's sort of well known by now, Dubai World Cup Day, big gold rail. Ryan Moore knew that. Ryan Moore took advantage of that. And this is, those kinds of things that we just saw there in that video, that's what happens on tracks that have gold rails like that. The horses that take advantage of it really look like something special, and all the other horses in the field who didn't get the run of the race like he did, they just look terrible, and it leads to performances like that one.
But as you said, it's not like Mendelssohn was just some bum who showed up and took advantage of a gold rail. He won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf last year when he got a great trip under Ryan Moore, basically saving all the ground and then dominating in the stretch as the 9-2 favorite. I think a lot of folks have been salivating about Mendelssohn's Kentucky Derby chances because of his pedigree. Everyone knows that he's a half to the great beholder who will be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and among her many Grade 1 wins was in the Pacific Classic at 1 1/4 mile, so pedigree aficionados are satisfied. Are you concerned about pace? This is a horse that probably didn't set blazing fractions in the UAE Derby, mostly synthetic and turf fractions he was up against in those other races. Do you think there's a situation where Mendelssohn will be further behind than where he's used to being, and that could work against him in a big and bulky field?
Yeah, 100%. I think that has to be the main concern with him. Not only, not only do you have to worry about his last race where maybe he just really took advantage and isn't as good as he looked that day, but you have to worry about what kind of trip you think he's getting in this race, because clearly, unless Ryan Moore is just all out for the lead here, he's not making the front in this race, and that means he's probably over behind horses and maybe even a lot further back than he's used to being, and all those things could really work against him. He's a good horse, and he does have the big Breeders' Cup Turf win last year, where, as you say, he just got an unbelievably good trip in that race. So, he's got 2 real big wins on his card, and both of them you could just sort of make the argument they make him look a little bit better than he really is.
But he ticks some boxes. Obviously, he's got the pedigree. Obviously, he has the seasoning. Obviously, he has shipped successfully. It has not worked against him in the past. From a pure talent standpoint, from what you've seen, and you've seen most of his races, where does he fit with the Justifies, with the Magnum Moons, with the better horses of this crop, and what price do you think is fair to take on him on Derby Day? Is he a kind of horse where you're like, something, I'm just not interested in at a relatively short price, or are you saying he might be an uncommon talent, I've got to have him somewhere?
Yeah, as we, approach, the deadline here of getting up to about a week before the race, I just don't really want any part of this horse in the Derby. I want him to prove it to me on the first Saturday in May, and maybe he'll do that. I do think he's a good horse. I don't think he's nearly as good as the UAE Derby makes him look, but I guess we'll find out more.
And one last quick question. We talked about the Apollo curse with Justified. Do you think there is anything to the UAE Derby jinx, or is that just an overrated sort of Derby angle?
Yeah, I mean, when you start talking about angles like that, we see them all fall by the wayside eventually. They fall by the wayside because they really don't mean anything. All that stuff is random. Just because nobody's ever exited the UAE Derby and won the Kentucky Derby, does that mean it's never going to happen? No, it'll happen when the right horse tries it.
And it might be Mendelssohn, who won that race by 18.5 lengths, and Andy Beyer gave him a 106 Beyer, which would be among the fastest of this crop. That's Mendelssohn, a major contender for the Kentucky Derby.